Hi Philippe.
Hi Clément.
Today, we're diving into a topic that could redefine how global trade and international collaboration function: the end of multilateralism. There's a lot of talk about a world becoming more divided, where international partnerships are weakening, and bilateral agreements and protectionist policies are on the rise. Can you shed some light on the main reasons behind this trend and what it really means for our interconnected world?
Well, what we have to define first is the fact that before, the world we have had for many years, it was a cooperative, coordinated world. This means that we were all following the same rules, and so we have had a huge period, long period of growth and stability. That's very important for all emerging countries. And in the architecture of what we had, we have all countries following the same rules, but with the US as hegemon, as leader of the big picture. And what it means that US has to constrain countries to follow the rules, and it provided public good, international public good, as the dollar, as financial markets, to ease trade between countries. And what has changed is the fact that in China now, the competition has changed with the US. You know, in 2001, when China arrived in the World Trade Organization, it was a very low income country, and they have invested a lot. We have had a lot of technological transfer from the US and Europe to China. And now they are very strong competitors. And they do not want to follow exactly what is done in the US. They want to follow their own way. That's something interesting, because in the world with one leader and all the other countries, we know that we cannot have two leaders, because each one will wish to impose its own rules, and it doesn't work. At the same time, the US, since the first mandate of Donald Trump, has changed. They are following a more isolationist trend. And this means that they want to have a bilateral relationship with countries, and they do not want necessarily to have the dollar as international public good, etc. So we are not able to imagine a kind of reconciliation between China and the US on this topic. So multilateralism will probably be weaker in the future than what we had. And so it will have strong impact on growth, it will have strong impact on financial markets.
Considering this dynamic, what does it specifically mean for France and Europe? How are we navigating this new global environment?
The two leaders in the world economy, in the geopolitics, are China and US. Europe is not in the picture. So what we have to do, and we wanted that after the Draghi's report a year ago, was to improve our capacity of autonomy. It's not already the case, but that's what we have to work on to be able to exist between China and the US. If we don't do that, if we don't invest a lot in innovation, if we don't work a lot in education, probably we will have a kind of vassalization regarding the US. That's not something that we really want in Europe.
Moving beyond geopolitics, how might the decline of multilateralism impact the global economy and financial markets? What should we be prepared for?
Two elements mainly. The first is that if we do not follow the same rules, there will be more uncertainty in our transactions. Before, we had a transaction between France, Belgium, and Brazil. Everything was clear. It will no longer be the case, because everyone will want following its own rules. And so it will bring uncertainty. And we know that in contract, when there is uncertainty, it's a source of lower dynamics or lower momentum. What is important there is that all this momentum between countries has been a strong source of improvement for everyone. It will no longer be the case. Probably we will have a situation positive in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, in the US, maybe in Europe, but it will not be a global picture. And the other part is that if China and the US are in a strong competition, what will be the interest for China to use the dollar? And in that case, and that's something we have to keep in mind, is will the US, through the Federal Reserve, have been the lender of last resort since World War II. Will it play the same role in the future? So it will have a strong impact on our situation, on trade, on financial markets too.
And what implications does this have for investors? What signals should they be paying attention to in this context?
In fact, the world is really changing. You know, we have seen a lot of crises when we have experience. Now we will have large region, US, Asia, around China, Europe, Africa, but relationship between all these regions will be weaker than what we had. And that's what is problematic. Investors will have to be very attentive to the change in their environment. And that's very new. We cannot imagine following the same rule forever as we did in the past. And that's really new. So we have to be attentive to everything that is published in terms of news from the US, from China, from Europe. And we have to do the job every day, not sometime.
To wrap things up, the decline of multilateralism isn't just a diplomatic issue. It's also a lasting factor in slowing growth, leading to more fragmented markets and a more complex world for investors. What key takeaway would you like to leave our audience with?
We have to be aware that the global world is changing. That's something we start perceiving when we see clients. They say, okay, the situation is changing, but probably it is more deeply changing than we imagine. We have had a lot of crises for the last 40 years. What is different now is that in the past, it was mainly financial crisis. And we had in mind the fact that everything will be done to converge to the trend we had before the crisis. Now what we see is that everyone really wants to have its own trajectory, not necessarily the same and a common trajectory than its neighbor. And that's something very new. We can imagine that Asia, Europe and US will have some divergence in their trajectory. And the complexity for us as economists will be to reconcile all this. And that's a huge task for everyone.
Thank you, Philippe, and see you soon for additional insights from Ostrom Asset Management.
Thank you.